Hey everyone, it's Lisa here, and I wanted to just give a little announcement about some of the stuff happening in Victoria today. So I woke up early in the morning and I thought, I smell smoke. I wonder if the neighbors are burning stuff in the fireplace again, because they've done it before and that was kind of a nasty scene. And then I heard in the news that we've got this outflow of air coming from the interior part of British Columbia, which means that it's bringing a lot of wildfire smoke with it. So basically the whole town was covered with this haze of wildfire smoke. And I'm not sure if you can really see on the camera quality here, but there's a lot of haze in the background on the horizon. The sunlight looks kind of weird. It's mid-afternoon, but it's really kind of, it feels like it's almost sunset because there's so much crap in the atmosphere. So the light's gotten a lot more kind of smudgy and reddish looking than usual. I remember a couple years ago we had a really bad fire and that was nearby, and you could actually look at the sun and see this kind of orange disc in the sky. It was just really eerie and unpleasant, and the smell of smoke was getting on people's nerves. People who have things like emphysema, they couldn't go outside because the air quality was so bad. And that's why I'm just showing you this respirator here. It's an industrial type respirator that's meant for fine particles, and we're going to talk about particulate matter in the class, in the part about air pollution later on this term. But I just wanted to say here, this is like a little sneak preview. So we call this PM for short, particulate matter, and the type that they tend to measure around the world scientifically is what they call PM10, which means that the particles are 10 microns or 10 1 millionth of a meter across. So they're really tiny, tiny particles. So 10 microns, that's what PM10 means. And then there's even smaller particles, PM2.5, that's 2.5 microns, really tiny things. I used to think that it was the big particles that would cause a lot of problems and get into your lungs, but it turns out that the really tiny ones are even worse. And we'll look at this whole thing and explore it in class a bit more about why the little ones are now thought to be really dangerous. But in any case, a lot of people are finding that they're having respiratory problems. If it goes on for days, I mean, even people who don't really have major issues with their lungs start to notice things like their eyes start to sting because you've got mucous membranes there, and they're irritated by this constant barrage of particulates. And the breathing, of course, and so people were finding that they had to go outside wearing masks, and this was before COVID, of course, happening. Now, one thing they found about masks is that our good old friend, the N95 mask that you heard about from the pandemic, N95 is the type that's rated to deal with fine particles like wildfire smoke. It can actually do a pretty good job of filtering these things out. So another good reason to keep an N95 mask handy if you're living in a place like California or BC or Australia, that tends to have a lot of brush fires. And the other type that can work is the P100 type, which is made for more industrial applications. I think that it's actually meant for kind of oily situations like certain kinds of burning garbage give off these oily particles, and these masks can guard against that. Anyway, these two numbers, when you see them on masks, that's a sign that these are good masks for situations with a lot of fire particulates, because they can help filter out those little tiny particles. And the kind of respirator that has two straps, in general, that's a good rule of thumb for telling that that's going to be a good one to buy, because it's a bit more secure, it'll fit a little bit better, and they tend to be higher quality than the ones that are just like one string around your head, basically. Anyway, so that's a little quick rundown on air quality and PM and what that means. When you talk about that, it's an abbreviation in measuring pollutants. And just a little overview of what it looks like today. Anyway, I'm just going to swiggle the camera a little around so you can see. That's Mount Tomey in the distance. And yeah, you can't really see the top of it very well because it's a bit hazy, and again, that's because of the smoke. Anyway, so I'll be back a little bit later on talking about more pollutant stuff in class, but for now, that's just a quick intro about air pollution and a real-world example of what's happening right now. All right, take care. Have a good week.